So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think we should talk about part-time working slash fractional working.
Mm. So what do you think the opportunities there are for the sector? Do you think we're missing a trick? What would you like to see ideally?
I like to see people stop trying to shove multiple, expecting people to be an extreme generalist, particularly at a senior level, instead of splitting a role up. Just had a
Mm.
conversation earlier actually with someone who's not in the sector, talking about a team member of theirs who's struggling with something. And one of the questions I put to them was, well, is this role right? Like, and they were talking about it's got some very technical elements and then it's got some very operational elements. And I was like, well, maybe this is two roles. Like maybe
Mm.
this is two people, maybe not two full-time people, but it's two skill sets, and you can't just like smush it together to make a 40-hour a week, so many hours like of work, and just put it into one person and expect one person to be able to do that. So I think there should be a little bit more imagination about how we
That's true.
consider
Think about,
roles and groupings of expertise. Yeah.
yeah, how often like the job description goes out and it's like this unicorn, non-existent
Mm.
individual that can do all singing, all dancing, all can play the cello on their head while balancing
Yeah.
and juggling with their feet. It just is like the amount of skill and expertise and knowledge and space for innovation all in one package and one human. It how realistic are we being? I don't know. It's a very
Mm.
good, really very provocative statement, Rachel. Make you
Well,
think.
I think also because it we have this challenge when you progress through hierarchy, which we talked about before, where you
Mm.
start off as a generalist in a very junior role, and then you tend to get more and more and more specialist, and then suddenly you're expected to be a broad generalist again. I'm sure that's something that your clients and things have grappled with in terms of thinking about grade
Mm.
progression. Like you reach a point where, if you want to be a director or something, like so I work in admissions, and it's generally often grouped with recruitment and marketing. And I go, you go, being in admissions, you get, or even in recruitment or marketing, you get more and more and more specialist, and you really, really know your subject, and then suddenly you like have to know what two other areas of specialism do
Mhm.
because they're grouped together.
Mm.
I also think there's something in I think we've talked a bit about this before as well, but about related to sort of analysing, well, what are the skills that you need, but also assessing what is the volume that you need. Because I think where individuals are trying to get promotion, sometimes what they do is take on loads of volume and then they go
Mm.
to their boss and say, right, well, you should promote me now. And actually, the boss is like, well, no, because you've just got loads of volume, you haven't got additional accountability or responsibility at that more senior level. And I know that happened to me when I left my first role in HE.
Mm.
I had this weird split responsibility where I was team leading and like managing a team and also had a portfolio of responsibilities of my own. And when I left, the paperwork was going through for me to be regraded, but actually they decided to split it and recruit two people into that post.
Mm.
And so it doesn't really help us with the sort of part-time considerations, but I think we need to be more thoughtful about volume. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm seeing across the sector at the moment is just there's an incredible amount of volume and more of the like do more with less messaging. And actually there probably are times where you could be a bit creative and bring in two people on, 0.6, and then you're not paying for two FTE, you're paying for 1.2 FTE, but getting that extra bit of coverage and wraparound that would probably really help in a team that's stressed.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily about being all available all the time, but actually you get more coverage across like a whole year or a block or whatever. Now is where I get to mention the thing that always gets people annoyed when I mention it on LinkedIn, workload planning. So I think one
What?
of the
No, we
biggest
don't do that.
Well, we don't do that. And that's one of the biggest issues is that so much of this is entirely conceptual. We magic these things out of nowhere on a women of prayer, and just kind of, well, the last person coped with all of that, so that must be vaguely reasonable as a role, no matter the fact that they were burnt out and that's why they left, but they did just about keep it all afloat. So I think we do need to, like, it's really out of sync with a lot of other sectors, and really out of sync with the tools and stuff that we have available to us to better quantify and quality control volume or scale or levels of responsibility. Like working in the private sector, when it's on billable time, chargeable time, there are so many different concepts, and obviously lots of different things which are flawed to some extent, etc. But it is absolutely bonkers to me that we don't have any mechanisms to assess, workload. And I mean, I know that extends more broadly. It's why, the NHS stopped doing workload planning in like the 1990s or something. And that's why they're in crisis, because workload planning did used to be a thing in the public sector, a really big thing. But it became difficult. And so I think that's part of it, because there will always be people, and certain groups of people more than other certain groups of people, who will take on those unicorn roles and don't, if nobody will take it because it's unrealistic, then they'll have to rethink it, right? But there's people who will just do it on a surface. Different people take on a role and assess differently, like how much they actually have to do and how they demonstrate their impact and output and stuff.
And how capable and proficient they are at that role.
Yeah.
The role I left from Edinburgh, where I was replaced with two people, I'd been doing that job for 4 years, and I knew all of the workarounds. I knew all of the people who were on speed dial to fix stuff or get, favors, or, sort of all those sort of nifty things. And I had optimized the processes of that job to within an inch of their life. And so something that would take me 20 minutes might take a new person 2 hours, because they're going to have to sit there, work out the process. They're probably, in and out of different files and folders to find all the right bits of documentation or whatever it is, or, stuff like that. And so I think it's also not really appropriate to compare a very experienced person of a role with a brand new person of a role, even outside of recruitment and induction and onboarding processes. Like somebody 6 months into a role still probably isn't going to be that quick at some of those processes that somebody who's been doing it for 4 years will be.
Yeah, 100%. As someone who's been in my role for 6-7 months, I'd be like, there's still things that it takes me 20 minutes just to find what I'm looking for, because I can't read the mind of the person who filed it. So it's and that's 3/4 of a year in, half a year in. So yeah, when you're and that's somebody with loads of experience who's worked in lots of things, and who knows SharePoint really well and knows some of the tricks of the trade. So yeah, as you go into less experienced colleagues coming on board into a role or into a new area, they might have lots of experience somewhere, but not in this institution or not in this team. You've got to price that in, and it hardly ever does. Let alone, that's why nothing's part-time, everything's more than full-time, just to be able to get the job done that it says on paper.